Welcome. It is Mitch I Am on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click subscribe, like the videos, give them some sort of interaction. If you don't even want to listen or watch, just click the video, click play, turn the volume down, let it run through its course, get the view. Everyone leaves happy. Breaking news today for the Green Bay Packers actually dropped earlier this afternoon, late afternoon. They trade for Malik Willis, backup quarterback, or at least was in the running to be QB2 behind Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans. He comes over to Green Bay. Packers give the Titans a 2025 7th-round pick. So you know how much this front office values draft picks, and if anything, they like to stockpile them up, whether it's future assets down the road in drafts 2, 3, 4 years later on, or if it's this upcoming draft. I do think it's kind of fascinating. They give up a 2025 7th. The draft's here in Green Bay. You know the front office is going to want to use some of those picks when the draft is in Green Bay next April. But this time around, they give up a 7th rounder to get Malik Willis. Let's start with what this means for Green Bay's backup spot in that aspect, and then we'll dive into Willis a little bit. To me, this signals Sean Clifford's probably gone. Didn't stand out enough. Don't even know if you could really make an argument that he was better than Michael Pratt during training camp and preseason. I don't think there's any case to be made that he was leaps and bounds better than Michael Pratt. Maybe if you thought he edged him out in some areas, that's fine, but keep in mind this is Clifford's second year, and you really didn't see much improvement from last training camp and preseason when he had his opportunities to this summer, and that's somewhat worrisome. I mentioned on the last video I did, with Clifford, there's some chaos, and that can be fun at times, and I made the comparison to Johnny Manziel, and I wasn't comparing Clifford to Manziel. I was comparing maybe not even the play style, but the moments. Like Johnny Manziel had so many moments in college at Texas A&M where you're like, what the heck is happening? Where is this play going? And then he found the pot of gold, and he'd zing a pass 30 yards downfield to Mike Evans, and you'd be like, oh, that's awesome. And that was the lure of Johnny Manziel. That's why so many people were fascinated and captivated by Manziel. Awesome in college, doesn't really work in the pros. We've seen Clifford have these moments where he's scrambling around at times, looks a little lost, and you're like, is he going to try to create something? And then you're also like, oh no, this could be an interception, and it's not so much fun. It's not so much fun when you see your quarterback doing it in the National Football League. And Clifford, again, just didn't really stand out too much in preseason, in training camp, and I do think this move means he is likely on his way out. Now, where things can get interesting is I do not believe this means Michael Pratt is 100% gone. If Green Bay opts to keep 3 quarterbacks, look, you just gave up a 7th-round pick for Malik Willis. He's in the picture. Malik Willis will be part of the 53-man roster. You're not trading for a quarterback the day before roster cutdowns to bring him into the building and be like, let's see, we'll get rid of him. No, Malik Willis will be a part of the 53-man roster. There's no practice squad. He's going to be on it. He will be on the roster, not the practice squad. Michael Pratt, 7th-round pick out of Tulane. Certainly a project. You see some on-tap potential, at least I do. Maybe you do as well. And got a strong arm. Had that pick against Baltimore where you're kind of scratching your head like, what could he have possibly seen there, or what did he not see, throwing it right to a Baltimore Raven. But then he gets in there on the tackle on the back end, and you're like, man, he's got that grit to him. Got a little banged up on the play. I believe if Green Bay keeps 3, it will be Love, Willis, and it would be Pratt. I would be very surprised if the Packers opt to keep 3, if it's Love, Willis, Clifford. The other interesting thing with Pratt, do you try to keep him on the 53-man roster and roll with 3 quarterbacks? Or if you're that front office, if you're head coach Matt LaFleur and the Brain Trust, and you're going through this right now and trying to get down to that final 53, do you think you can sneak Pratt onto the practice squad, or could another team possibly scoop him up and claim him? But I do believe the Willis acquisition means Clifford for sure out the door. Entering his second year, which is a shame, of course. You want to see all these guys flourish and succeed, and you just didn't get that sense. At least I didn't with Clifford this training camp and this preseason. And again, the growth you would have expected. No one expected him to come out here and be a world beater and look like a starting quarterback or that type of caliber quarterback this preseason and during training camp, but he didn't show a lot of signs of improvements from last offseason to this summer, and that's the concern if you're the Packers. But I think there is still a chance for Pratt, either on the 53 or if Green Bay tries to stash him and hide him away on the practice squad. As for Malik Willis, he's a true dual threat. Super, super athletic. 3 starts. They came back in 2022. He had no starts last year, hardly played. I think he attempted 5 passes. This preseason, Willis was 20 of 27, 205 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Also had 101 rushing yards. That's all combined throughout his exhibition games. I mentioned he's a true dual threat. One thing I love about Malik Willis, and it dates back to his days at Liberty. Liberty was a really good football program with Willis at the helm, and they've kind of carried that on the last couple of years too. He's a creator. There's something about watching Malik Willis where he can make something out of nothing. Now, the concern is, I might sound hypocritical, because Clifford at times has those plays break down, and it can turn into that word chaos, and that can happen with Willis as well. For whatever reason, and maybe I have the blinders on dating back to his Liberty days when it worked out a lot, because obviously I haven't seen him a lot on the Titans. He only started, like I said, those couple of games, 3 of them back in 2022. There's just a belief with Willis, and I think his legs help that a lot. That belief that when something does break down, he can turn into that creator and make something out of nothing. So I definitely like that with Willis. I know some Packer fans might scratch their head at this move and say you gave up a draft pick. The draft's in Green Bay. It's a 7th rounder, and clearly the Packers didn't feel, overly comfortable with their backup quarterback spot. You go back to what Matt LaFleur said post-game after Saturday's contest against Baltimore, and he was asked about the kicker spot and the quarterback spot, and he was gun-shy to really, he didn't commit to anyone on either front, the kicking or the backup quarterback spot, and at one point said, we'll look at the options around the league. Well, this was looking at an option around the league, and, I will give the Green Bay front office the benefit of the doubt. I look at transactions in years past like Rasul Douglas, who worked out incredibly well. Devondre Campbell had an all-pro year with the Packers. Like, you look at some of these moves that on the surface seem pretty small, and they ended up working out very, very well for Green Bay. If Willis can be really cemented in as the backup, because I don't view him as much of a project. Like, I look at Michael Pratt as a project. I looked at Sean Clifford as, well, it's year 2, and you hate to draw conclusions after just 2 seasons for a guy, but you didn't really see that growth, that development with him. And Clifford might be at a point with what you have is what you got, and what you got moving forward with him. And Willis might be sort of in that same spot, but you think because of his legs, his athleticism, maybe the right scheme, the right offense could be a better fit, and you could tap into some things that maybe weren't evident in Tennessee with Willis. But again, I understand some Packer fans might scratch their heads at this. They might not like the move. I think they had to do something. Did anyone really feel confident entering the season with either Clifford or Pratt as QB2? And not to take shots at them, but I didn't. Because, again, I said when you look at the backup quarterback spot, if your premise is, man, if QB1 goes down, can our backup quarterback still lead us through a postseason? You're foolish to have that thought process. When you look at a backup quarterback, it should be, hey, if our starter's out for 2 to 3 games or 2 to 4 games, can the backup keep things afloat? And I didn't have the sense that Clifford or Pratt would be able to do so if thrown into the ring of fire this year if something were to happen to Jordan Love. Do I feel leaps and bounds better about Malik Willis in that spot? Right now, maybe not necessarily, but I don't feel worse, right? Like, I feel a little bit better about it. And again, I might have the blinders on because I love his athleticism. He's got a rocket for an arm. Now, the accuracy sometimes is a question, and I think one thing that has plagued Malik Willis, even in the preseason, the little bits of film that I was able to go look at quickly before I recorded, he sometimes appears to make plays more difficult than they need to be. Like, he'll try to thread the needle when if he just goes through his progressions for 1 more second or 2 more seconds if he has the time, someone else is open. If things break down, oftentimes he does rely on his legs too much. But I do think at moments he makes things more difficult than they need to be. And at the quarterback position, that can obviously be a major no-no. He gets antsy at times. But again, I love the legs. I love the athleticism. And you gave up a 7th-round pick. And you can draft some gems in the 2nd round. We hope Kalen King, cornerback out of Penn State, turns into one of those guys, right? a 7th-round pick. You hope Pratt does. Quarterback out of Tulane, the rookie. You hope he turns into somewhat of a gem and a project that develops very well down the road, and it's in the green and gold with the Packers. But at the end of the day, if you're evaluating your needs and you needed a backup quarterback and all you had to do was give up a 7th-rounder, and that's who Green Bay targeted in on, Malik Willis, and you feel good about that if you're the front office, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I will continue to give the front office the benefit of the doubt until they prove us otherwise. Again, is he better than Sean Clifford by a wide margin? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know, but it's not worse than what Green Bay had. I do see this as somewhat of an improvement, and then we wait and see. And he's got the experience, not much, but 3 starts in 2022 with the Titans in what was a very vanilla, watered-down scheme. If you go back and watch those games or remember those games, for Malik Willis, they tried to keep it as simplistic as possible for him in the offense in those 3 starts. But again, 20 of 27 in the preseason, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 101 rushing yards, super, super athletic, a true dual threat. One thing that's fascinating, LaFleur sort of being an offensive wizard and offensive mastermind, if something did happen to Jordan Love and Willis had to fill in for 2-3 games, offense could look a little bit different. Maybe you mix in some more RPOs for Willis. I just think he's a fascinating prospect, and I like the move from Green Bay. Do I love it? Am I up in arms celebrating? No, but I do think it's an upgrade, and I feel better about the backup quarterback spot now heading into week 1 against Philadelphia. I think the last thing to watch here is what they do with Michael Pratt. Again, I think Clifford's probably gone, and now it's focus on Michael Pratt because Love's here, Willis is staying. You gave up a draft pick to acquire him. What do you do with Michael Pratt? 53-man roster, practice squad. I actually don't think they'll outright release Pratt. I think they're going to find a spot for him one way or another. And whether that's the practice squad and then hope he doesn't get poached by another team, we'll wait and see. But Green Bay makes the trade. Malik Willis, likely your QB2 in Green Bay. Mitch I.M., that's the YouTube name. Make sure to subscribe. We'll see you next time.